And greetings, everyone. Happy Sunday, and welcome back to the Always a Queen, the Metamorphosis platform for another Sunday afternoon podcast. Thank you very much for being here. If this is the first time you have ever happened across this platform, welcome and thank you for being here. And I would like to just invite you to stay with us for a while because this is about to be a very interesting conversation. All right. This is the Always the Queen, the Metamorphosis podcast. We do this on Sunday afternoons, usually every other Sunday. And I created this platform for the empowerment, the elevation, and the nurture of our women, of our queens. And we tackle mental health topics, personal development topics, anything that will empower and elevate your lifestyle as a woman. We talk about that here. So if this is the kind of content that you're into, you might want to like and follow and subscribe to the Always the Queen, the Metamorphosis platforms so that you can get more of this. I have with me my sister queen today, Keisha, who is the creator of the Happy Womb Club, which is another platform that you probably want to follow. But I'm going to let her give you all the tea on that and introduce herself and greet the people.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Queen. Thank you for having me on your show. It's always a blast whenever we hook up. So I'm really glad for this opportunity to be able to share with you and your followers. So, as you said, I am the creator of the Happy Womb Club, which really started out of my own personal journey to heal myself naturally from fibroids using herbs, dietary changes, lifestyle changes, really trying to get out of the um, invasive methodologies that are typically presented to women, specifically Black women, whether it be dangerous surgeries, debilitating medication, or straight out hysterectomies, which rob us of our life force, which is our womb. And when I say life force, I'm talking about whether or not you actually choose or you have children. I have found that for women, the womb is like your second heart. It is what breathes life into your creative work, your purpose, your relationships with others, your ability to feel whole and well. And so I created this space to assist women to heal themselves naturally, not only of physical ailments, but of the emotional, mental, and other isms that plague us and can have
Yes.
a effect on us.
All right. Fantastic. I see we have some uh, greetings coming in the chat section already. Hello, Monique. Thank you so much for being here, Queen. Hello, Danny Doe. Kids, I hope I am pronouncing that correctly. Thank you so much for being here with us for this podcast. I hope that somebody is going to really come away from this feeling enlightened. And I hope that this is going to be a game changer and a life changer for the women who are listening to us today. Because I feel like this is a conversation that we do not have nearly enough. All right. Now, there is a first part to this podcast. So I just wanted to say that in case anyone is catching us in part two right now, whether you are watching us live or you're watching the replay of this, I just want to stick that in. This is part two of the discussion. So you might want to watch part one. If you are watching the recording of this, pause it, go back, look for part one, watch that, and then come back and watch this. If you're watching us live right now, obviously stay right here. Don't go anywhere. All right. So I want to let Keisha lead off the discussion. Greetings, MJ. Welcome in. I want to let Keisha lead off the discussion in the part two of this, because the last time Keisha had a list that she didn't get to tackle. And we're going to make sure, she covers that list today, okay? Before we jump into Keisha's list though, let me just very, very quickly, very briefly, for anybody who is listening who has no idea what this Madonna-Whore complex is that we're talking about here today, like you've never heard this terminology before, and you don't have a clue what we're going on about, let me just quickly say that the Madonna-Whore complex is a psychological complex which is often perpetuated specifically by heterosexual males. So I need to be clear on that. Heterosexual males are typically the ones who would find themselves afflicted with this complex. And what it does is it basically places women into two categories. You are either a Madonna or you're on the other end of the spectrum and you become what we call a whore. And we all know what people refer to as a whore in our cultural communities, right? So if you are on the end of the spectrum where you are the Madonna, you are the woman who is pure and virtuous and nurturing. If you are on the opposite end, where we would put the women that we are referring to as whores for the purpose of this complex, you are deemed as a woman who is overly sexual, you're manipulative, you are promiscuous, all of those things that we would typically attach to someone who is labeled that way. And this dichotomy, you know, where you are either on one polar end or the other, really creates a rigidity for our women, right? It comes from the mindset of the heterosexual male, but it creates a rigidity that limits our women in their sexual expression, in their sexual agency, in their sexual freedom, and just basically how they define their sexuality. It's like there is no in between. You're either pure or you're not, right? It's very black and white. And of course that becomes problematic, right? And that is in a nutshell. I really oversimplified it there just now because there's so much more to it. This is deep and wide, right? But I gave you a very simplistic version just now of what the Madonna-Whore complex is within the field of psychology. And of course, stay with us because we're gonna unpack it. We're gonna unpack it for you. Okay. So now I'm going to pause my mic and I'm gonna let Keisha jump in and start expounding a little bit more on that for those of us who are watching online.
Well, thanks for that, Queen. I mean, spot on as usual. But one of the things that we explored in part one was how much this, what I like to describe as a form of psychosis that we find in some heterosexual males, how much it's as a result of patriarchy and the Western heterosexual male's need to control and to deal with his own insecurities as a man, to deal with how he can categorize women in either categories to make himself feel better about his desires, his shortcomings, etc. So we did focus a lot on that in part one. But what is interesting for me, if we are serious about the identity of being a queen, if we are serious about elevating consciousness as women and empowering ourselves, then at some point we have to release the idea that this is something that we have no agency over. So yes, it exists in patriarchy. Yes, it exists in the minds of males. But what are some of the things that we are doing to enable this kind of behavior and to enable this kind of thought process? And one of the first things on my infamous list that I wanted to tackle with
not
you,
infamous
is the concept of the boy mom. The boy mom. So recently, I believe it was earlier this week, a creator on TikTok went viral for talking about her children, specifically saying, yes, she loves her daughter, but that her son means the world to her. And she went on to elaborate in very colorful language about how special her son is to her. And of course, this sparked a lot of stitches and debates on TikTok and various other platforms about the concept of the boy mom and how women do a disservice, not just to their girls, but to the boys, the boy mom that they have created this incestuous relationship with, not incestuous in the literal sense. But of course, if we go back to the original definition that we gave in part one, the Freudian concept of the obsession, the romantic crush that little boys have on their mothers, right? So it's a form of emotional incest that many women encourage and perpetuate in their young boys. And they grow up, rather than having a healthy delineation between seeing the image of the Madonna, which is the motherly, nurturing woman, a clear delineation between that and the wife that they're supposed to love and be sexually drawn to. It's modeled from a very early age. So for me, one of the first things I feel we should tackle in this discussion as women seeking to empower self is to look at how we enable these behaviors in men. And you know, there is so much discussion, and I'm sure you come across it in your practice, about the jealousy and the toxicity that exists between mothers and daughters. But why is that? Why are we taught, many of us as women, to prioritize boys? Why are we taught that a male child is inherently more valuable than a female child? And this goes way, way back to we can talk about centuries for when, you know, having a male child that's the heir to the throne, that's the king or whatever, right? It goes deep. But there's also a modern phenomenon which says that boys are easier to raise. And boys give less trouble. Boys are more loving. And a lot of it, if we are really honest, a lot of women have these unhealthy attachments to male children because they use these relationships as a replacement, as stand-in for the romantic relationship that they are lacking with adult males. And so they pump up these little boys, my king, my little man, all these unhealthy terminologies and ways of being that for the most part many men never grow out of. Right. So how do we as women cease to stop overvaluing male children above a female child, thereby perpetuating this nonsense? Yeah. And of course it doesn't stop with your offspring. Even in our own relationships, many women, some unwittingly, perpetuate this Madonna-Whore thing because they become their husband's mothers. They want to replace the husband's mother. Right. A lot of it is coming from the biblical idea of leaving your mother to cleave to a woman. So it's almost like your woman replaces your mother. But what agency do we have? We have to start asking ourselves, what role are we playing in perpetuating this dynamic? And far too many of us are extremely guilty of it.
I would have to agree. And just to piggyback off of a couple of things that you said, I believe that what we are guilty of as women, because we're holding ourselves accountable in this part 2 of this conversation. We're holding ourselves accountable, and one of the things that we're absolutely guilty of is we are guilty of supporting, of advancing the cultural script that exists around what male-female relationships should look like within our cultural community. Now, we have a choice where it comes to these scripts, and these scripts are coming down to us from patriarchal norms, obviously. The scripts were written long before we were born. These scripts have existed for centuries, right? And they are coming down through the generations. We have two choices. We can either help to advance the agenda of these cultural scripts, or we can push back against them. For the most part, I do not see us pushing back. For the most part, what I see us doing is actually just falling into the script. And a lot of the script that we are falling into is encouraging this school of thought, for example, that boys are easier to raise. Boys are not easier to raise necessarily. The cultural script, however, advances the idea that you need to do less with boys than you have to do with girls. That raising a girl is more work because she requires more protection. She requires more nurture. She requires a greater investment of your time and your energy. She requires also that you eventually find somebody to hand her off to, and you need you have to, because after a while, if she hasn't found a husband and left the family home, she's viewed not as an asset but as a liability to the family. The boy, on the other hand, is always an asset, and so these schools of thought are still overshadowing the way we as women are raising our boys. We still exist within this mindset that it's okay to allow our boys to roam the streets. We do not need to necessarily be particular in our parenting styles where it comes to the boys. But with the girls, you have to be very particular. The girls must walk a straight line because you are a girl. It reminds me of a song. I believe this song was written by Burning Flames. If I am wrong, somebody in the chat section can tell me. Burning Flames is a well-known band from Antigua, and I believe it was them who sang a song that said, "Tie your hen because my cock Lego." Have you ever heard that song, Keisha?
No, I haven't.
After this podcast, you must go and look it up. Look for it on YouTube by Burning Flames.
I will.
Tie your hen because my cock Lego. In other words, keep your eyes on your girl children because my boys are on the loose. You understand? But if you have your boys on the loose so that they can prowl and do whatever they want, somebody's girl child is going to be their target. I mean, this is obvious. So why would you want to do that? Why not extend the same courtesy to your neighbor's girl child that you would want extended to your girl child, right? These are the crazy things that we're still doing as the women who are raising the boys in these days that we live in. And then you mentioned emotional incest, which is a huge issue in clinical settings. Let me tell you, as a psychotherapist, this is something I see very, very frequently. Because emotional incest, though it may take root in childhood, where we really see the problems that it can cause is when that man becomes an adult and decides that he wants to become somebody's partner or somebody's husband. That is when you start seeing the ugly face and the consequences of emotional incest. Because emotional incest is rooted in this idea that your mother is the woman in your life. She takes precedence over all. And I don't want anybody to go away from this podcast saying that I, Therese Millett Joseph, suggested that anybody should disrespect or dishonor their mother. I would never say such a thing. I would never. Your mother deserves your honor and your respect just by virtue of the fact that she's your mother. However, she cannot, is not, will never be your wife. And until you are able to differentiate, and until your mother also is able to differentiate between the role she plays in your life and the role your wife plays in your life, you will always have problems. And this is the emotional. It's beyond emotional incest. It is what's the term I'm looking for? There's another clinical term that we often use, enmeshment. That's the term that I was trying to find just now. It is beyond emotional incest. It is a situation where there is literal enmeshment trauma happening in a family dynamic, where you have sons who are becoming surrogate husbands for mothers who have these men, these grown boys, filling the space, the emotional space in their lives that a partner would occupy. Now, we are not talking about physical incest. There is no sexual contact.
Right.
This is a different type of incest altogether. There is no sexual contact, but the son is completely occupying that part, that space within his mother's life where a partner would sit, meaning that he's not just providing for her physically, making sure her material needs are being met. He is also her confidant. He is her companion. He provides the affection that she needs, that nobody else is providing, because maybe she is not partnered, maybe she is widowed, maybe she does have a partner, but the partner is not meeting all of those needs adequately, and the son fills the role. But for whatever reason, there is an emotionally incestuous connection going on, filling a space that should only be occupied by a partner, making it impossible for any healthy partnered relationships to happen for either the mother or the son. It's wild.
Yeah. But you know, the scenario you described, yeah, absolutely. At the beginning of this section, you spoke of this idea of girls being hard to raise because they require more nurturing. And I would even go as far as to say that's actually the best case scenario, if in those scenarios you see where they are extending more nurturing to the girl. What tends to happen in a lot of toxic cases is where boys are loved and girls are raised. So that nurturing that the girl needs, she's often denied that, and she's left to nurture herself. And so it creates a whole other dynamic where she starts to seek love in others. She starts to seek love, external validation, because, you know, you're a girl, you can handle yourself.
Yeah.
You know, going back to our culture and music. So if you think of dancehall culture and you think of the music and how, you know, in Jamaica we say, when you want to get a forward in a dance, or, you know, you want someone to say, pull up that tune or bust a blank, right? Think of the typical scenario, the typical song. For the woman, it is, if you have your own door key, give me a scream. If you have your job, give me a scream. If the boy can't put you out, give me a scream. There is never the equivalent responsibility in that dancehall cultural setting given to the men. So for example, you don't hear a selector saying, all man, bust a blank if you own your own house. That doesn't happen. No, think about it.
Interesting.
Bust a blank if you have a bag of girl. Bust a blank if no girl can take you for food. Bust a blank if you know you're a bad man. These are the things that we ascribe, even on a very basic cultural level, to what a man is supposed to be. But a woman, a girl, she's expected to be nurtured, competent, have her stuff together, which, if you think about the patriarchal dynamic, it's like turning things on their head. And going further about what you said in terms of this toxic emotional incest that is developed or encouraged between a lot of women and their sons. I like to use the example of Bounty Killer. Now, you know that there have been many allegations about domestic abuse between himself and his partner. I'll use the term allegations for now. However, I don't think that there is any hardcore artist that sings about the love and admiration that he has for his mother like Bounty Killer. Everybody knows a line in a song where Bounty is talking about Miss Ivy. So what often happens is the mother of these men are pedestalized to the point where no other woman is worthy of his love. So he can have sex with a woman, he can have children with her, he can even marry her. But that love and adoration and respect is reserved for his mother. And so oftentimes people get confused. People will say, how can this man who, if anyone says a word about his mother, he'll be willing to break World War III. But he's so disrespectful to his wife, and he will beat his wives, he will do all kind of things to his wife, but no one can disrespect his mother. And that is part of the danger, because you no longer in that aspect of the Madonna-Whore complex, a woman that you're romantically involved with can never be the Madonna, because that is reserved for your mother. So it's even worse than what we discussed last time, because they can't even see a woman as someone motherly. Because only their mother is good enough for love and respect. Every other woman takes what she gets.
Yes.
And it's extremely dangerous.
This is rooted in a belief, in an erroneous belief, let me stick in that word there, that love and sex are mutually exclusive. I don't know who came up with that. Maybe you can tell me who came up with that. But this is of course rooted in Freud's understanding of the Madonna-Whore complex. Sex and love are mutually exclusive somehow. I will either love you or I will have sex with you, not both. So if I love you, I don't want to have sex with you. Kinda.
But you see, it makes sense if you look at it through the paradigm of how sexualized women have been under patriarchy. So if you look at the porn industry, and if you look at what are the popular searches, the type of degradation that is popular on these sites, it's hard to imagine that a man would love a woman and do those things to her. And I suppose for a lot of men too, it does pose a kind of mental challenge. That on the one hand, these degrading things are sexually exciting and enticing, but they're also degrading. This is the mother of my child, so I will have a literal whore, a literal sex worker who I assign these tasks to. Or there's a hierarchy of women, so you have your side chick and she is relegated to the role of doing those things, but your wifey, you don't do those things with her.
Right.
And that is what also breeds the sexual competition that we spoke about the last time too, because now women now want to enter into a game that they can never win. So the woman who is the wifey, she now wants to be the ghetto gal who give the wickedest slam, according to Beanie Man. But the ghetto gal who give the wickedest slam, she wants to be seen in the light of a wife.
Right.
But the thing is, none of them can ever win.
Is supposed to be a virgin.
Precisely. But they can't win.
They
can never win, because the idea is that that man who is suffering from that mentality, he can't be satisfied. He can't be satisfied because he can never see one in the other light. he has to have a clear demarcation between the two. That is
Yeah.
how it makes sense for him, because what he turns him on sexually is going to degrade the woman and he loves. And of course, part of our problem culturally too is that we don't understand that intimacy is not necessarily sex, and sex is not necessarily intimacy.
Yeah.
So to cultivate intimacy between a man and a woman, we're not encouraged to do things that's going to elevate the connection beyond the physical. And so we never get past some of these issues.
Right. Yeah. And to be clear, the result of this demarcation that you are speaking of, in which you cannot be the wholesome, pure, wifely material, and also, as you put it, the beanie man girl with the wicked Islam, like within the Madonna-Whore complex, those two women cancel each other out. They can't coexist within the same person. So what happens as a result is that he marries the virgin and brings her home based on the fact that she is a virgin. Her virginity is what qualifies her and makes her wifely. If she now decides that she wants, when they get into the bedroom, to become the girl with the wicked Islam, to make sure that he does not go find the girl with the wicked Islam outside, she's going to find herself in a problem, because within the Madonna-Whore complex, what she is doing is she is removing the Madonna-ness from her persona. You're no longer pure. Like, why are you doing these things in the bedroom? You can't, I mean, who taught you that? What you doing? You're supposed to just be nice and calm and quiet in the bedroom. What is this you're carrying on with? And she may be thinking in her mind, but I thought this was what you like. So you see, and this is what we mean when we say, where it comes to the men who are stuck in this Madonna-Whore complex, you can't win. You can't win. It's damned if you do and damned if you don't, basically.
And of course, there is the third category of men who feel that they have somehow evolved, and we spoke about this last time too, who will say, I have a lady in the streets and a freak in the bed. And so it can be very toxic in those situations too, because what they end up having or requiring is a woman who meets the standard of a mother, a maid who you can sleep with. And if you look at the recent rise in women filing for divorces, or women talking about burnout, weaponized incompetence, husbands who, you have to pay the bills, clean up after him, birth his children, breastfeed his children. Then on Valentine's Day, you have to dress up in red silk and all kind of madness. The women are saying, enough, we are exhausted. We can't be all things together. Like, cut down your expectation just a bit. I can't nurture you, breastfeed the children, keep the house spanking clean, and still turn around and be a sex goddess in the bed, right? Because if you listen to a lot of what some of these modern men who will tell you that they are not afflicted by this. What they simply want is the full package in a woman. Some of them are that delusional. What they will say, when you listen to how they describe their ideal wife, it's frightening. It is frightening. It sounds like a slave. They want someone who can cook, who will clean, who will submit to them, who will make them feel like a man, who will have sex with them at least 5 times a week. That's the job of several women. So you see, and the problem is, a lot of women go into these marriages thinking that it's a requirement for them to fulfill all these roles. Yeah. Even On a religious level, a lot of pastors, a lot of counselors are telling women that you're supposed to fulfill all the needs of your partner, and it's leading to a ridiculous amount of burnout. Or some women are trying to cater to men at the expense of their children, cater to men at the expense of themselves. There are running jokes that many the way you know a woman is married is because her edges are gone. I mean, it's the reality. A lot of married women look haggard and burnt out because they're trying to be too many things to too many people. The space to be to pour yourself into a child, that's feeding off you physically, emotionally. That's part of your duty as a mother, to turn around to now pour into a man, and then now after you do that, to go and be porn star, and then you're gonna pay 50% of the bills. You see? So
Don't start.
it's
Don't start.
too much.
And 50% argument on this.
We laugh, Therese, but it's a serious issue, because in the work that I do,
Serious.
so many women tell me once they've left their relationships, their fibroid shrink. Their fibroid shrink because all that draining and pressure of trying to be so many things to so many people, it caused an imbalance. It raised their cortisol levels. Why is it that there are so many reports coming out to say that these inflammatory diseases, women, particularly married women, are disproportionately affected by these diseases? So it sounds funny, but it's actually a serious women issue that women have to consider. Right. Trying to be too many things to too many people. And it's another thing I want us to discuss, the whole approach to dating and how women put themselves out there in terms of their ability to fulfill all these roles, which is just not realistic.
Yeah. There has been, speaking of dating and how women are marketing and packaging themselves, there is a reel that has been making the rounds on social media. I don't know if you have seen it. I've seen it several times over the course of the past week. It's a reel of a brief clip of an interview of a young lady who was asked if she wants to have children, and she said no. Categorically, she stated, no, I do not. The man almost fell off his chair. The man, he was shook, but not as shook as he was when he asked her, why you don't want to have children? And she said she doesn't see the benefit. That was literally her response. She said, I don't see the benefit. I want my life to be about me. The look on his face, like he I'm sure if you had cut him, he wouldn't bleed. He was like how could you not want to give birth? It was really, it was interesting to watch. And I thought of that just now when you spoke about how are women packaging and presenting themselves? How are we marketing ourselves in 2024 when you are in the dating pool trying to find a partner? And how is this impacting the whole Madonna-Whore complex situation that we have going on?
It's tricky, and women have to be careful, and they have to be intentional, not only about what they consume in terms of advice, but in terms of what they project. Because if you look at, say, the sprinkles, platforms where women are saying, oh, they want a provider, they want a man to pay all the bills, the stay-at-home mom, the trad wife mom. If you think about the concept, what that is really an exchange of energy. It's a contract. So the man is saying, this is what I bring. I'll pay all your bills. I'll spoil you. I'll give you push gifts. I'll take care of the bills, etc. But in return, you're expected to provide labor, whether it's your feminine support, whether it's actually giving birth to his children, making the house a home. It's still a contract, it's still an exchange. So you have to be very clear. When you say you want a man who is a provider, who's going to pay all your bills, men are transactional. There's no such thing as something for nothing.
Right.
There's this idea that, we're just going to sit and be princesses and somehow a man gives you your femininity, which a term I hate, a term I despise. A man somehow allowing you to rest in your femininity by simply paying bills. I would argue that that entrance fee is too low for to have access to my femininity, for someone to pay my bills. You'd have to do much more than that. But me aside, it's very important for women to understand what they're signing up for when you say you want a provider. What happens if, again, going back to the work I do, if you sign up to be married to a man who's a provider, who pays all the bills, a so-called traditional nuclear family arrangement, and you have infertility issues, then your worth now comes into question, because the man paid for a stay-at-home mother and wife. He didn't pay for a stay-at-home wife. So what happens if you have infertility issues? What happens when the children start to get older and your value as a stay-at-home mom becomes less because the children are more independent? What exactly are you offering? So we need to really question these things when we're going into the dating world, and be very clear and be very communicative about what we want, not only to ourselves, but to our partners, and think long term. What exactly are you selling? Yeah. If you want someone to pay your bills in exchange for what? You see? Yeah. So we have to be so clear not to give mixed messages, because at the same time...
I like that.
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say that I really like the fact that you spoke to the relationship between the man and the woman as a contract. I love that, because that is exactly what it is. And I know that people prefer not to hear it referred to in these terms, because it's not sensational, it is not romantic. Yes. And we think of relationships in a romantic light always, which is to our own detriment, but that's another conversation. Yes. But it is indeed a contract. All relationships are contractual agreements in which two parties come together and determine, this is what I want to get out of this contractual arrangement, and this is what I want to get. All contracts, all have deliverables on them. Yes. I have never seen a contract drawn up that does not include deliverables.
Precisely.
What are the deliverables? The deliverables are what I expect you to provide and bring to this contractual arrangement, this contractual relationship, and what you expect me to bring. Those are the deliverables. But contracts don't only have deliverables. Contracts also have expiry dates. They do. All contracts have, there are three things that all contracts have. Let's just put them on the table. All contracts have deliverables. All contracts have expiry dates, and all contracts have clauses within them that tell you what would cause that contract to become null and void. If you violate this term, the contract immediately becomes null and void. Even if we haven't gotten to the expiry date, there are things within the contract that if you do, immediately violates the contractual agreement and makes it null and void. Those are the three things that you find in every contract. What would happen if we were to approach our relationships and our marriages in that way? What do you think would happen?
Well, one of two things would happen. We would probably have greater expectation of joy and experience more joy, or we'd get married less. Because no,
Yes, for
because
sure.
if just like the young lady you mentioned, which I've seen that video, actually follow her. Um, if at the start a woman is saying, no, actually, I have no intention of having children, and the man knows that upfront and that she cannot be persuaded, then there would be no marriage, right? Or if going in, the woman says, look, I don't intend to be a maid, or I don't intend to do housework. Part of my expectation in this marriage is that we're going to hire help, because if I'm going to bear your children and still have my career or whatever, even if I stay home, I don't want to experience burnout. So
Right.
part of my non-negotiable is that you always maintain external help or external assistance for me in my so-called wifely duties, right? So it's either we're gonna be happier or we're going to be separate, because now we no longer have these unrealistic expectations of each other. We no
Right.
longer experience these ridiculous rates of divorce, because we're not coming into a fairy tale. We're coming into realistic demands and expectations.
Right.
But how many? The problem with that is, number one, women have been groomed. No matter what they say, no matter how progressive they think they are, the majority of women have been groomed to seek their Prince Charming. That's number one. And men have been groomed into the conquer and conquest mentality. So you see, even that interview where the woman is saying, I don't want any children, in that man's mind, oh, I can get her to submit to me. I can get
Yeah.
her to
I can
change.
change her
It's
mind.
a challenge, right? So he doesn't want to just go and find a woman who wants to have children with him. He's more intrigued. And also it's also a part of cutting her down. It's like the taming of the shrew, William Shakespeare's famous novel, right? The part of being manly is not that you conquer the cat. Nobody goes into the jungle and take pics beside a dead cat. You take pics beside the head of a lion to show your prowess as a hunter. And so many men have been groomed to say that the more difficult, the more independent, the more she stands on business, is the more I need to pursue her and
cut her down.
get her by lies, deception, and sometimes coercion. So again, it's very important for women to use discernment and be very clear and to be very strict in enforcing their boundaries.
Yeah, I want to add another layer to that. Because you see, as we are discussing relationships as contracts, etc., men go in to these contractual negotiations skilled. They are skilled because they have been prepared for this. As you rightly said just now, our men are raised to be pursuers. They are the predators. We are the prey. They are the conquerors. We are to be conquered. This is how they are socialized, right? And so they come to these relationship contracts skilled at negotiating for what they want, right? Even if you are saying clearly what they want is not what you're offering, they are prepared to sit there and bargain you down, like how you're bargaining down the woman in the market when she tell you it's $5 but you only have $4, right? That is how the men are trained. They have this, they come in with that skill. We do ourselves a disservice as women by not also developing our negotiation skills where it comes to our relationships. It is rare that you hear people talking about, oh, look at how he settled for that woman. He could have done better, but he settled. You may hear that, but it is rare, Keisha, rare. When people are talking about people settling for somebody, it's always the woman they're talking about, you know. They're talking about a woman. She is always the one. She settled. She settled for a little less than she wanted. She settled for less than she deserves, right? Why is it that most of the settlers are women? I will tell you why. Because the women are not skilled negotiators. The women are like the women in the market that you can easily bargain them down and knock down their price from $5 to $3. You know, it's like a meme I saw on the internet recently. A friend of mine had up a meme that said, "I know my worth, but sometimes I have a sale." I said, "Girl, take that down." I
But
know
you
my
know,
worth, but
Maurice,
sometimes I have a sale.
sometimes negotiation is important. Yes. And I agree that we should develop our skills of negotiation, but I wish to take it a step further. Because using your example of the market, one of the reasons why the haggler or the purchaser has a distinct advantage over the vendor is because goods are plentiful. So if you don't want my $4, the lady next door wants it. And there's an environment of scarcity amongst the vendors. Sometimes it's artificial scarcity. Because look at it this way.
Right.
If I'm a farmer, that means I have food, right? I have food. A lot of times these people who are market vendors, they're from the country. They live on vast properties of land, but they have this manufactured sense of need. They are told that they are poor because they don't live in city with air condition and toxic fumes and all that, when really they are rich because they have natural food and land and water in abundance. But there is a manufactured need that they have to come in the market and haggle for your little $4. Work with me. The analogy is the same with men and women. The manufactured need and scarcity, which is artificial, it's not real. It's something that women are taught from their small. Yes. The biological clock is ticking.
You have to compete.
Doesn't matter if you have a career or education. If you don't have a man, you're nothing. If you don't have a man, that reflects poorly on your character. Well, at least I have a man. Half a man is better than no man. So we are in this constant, even though they're supposed to be pursuing us.
Yeah.
We are actually pursuing them because we are settling when we don't have to. Men need us more than we need them. But the trick, the mind trick, is that we have to settle for their $4. When if all of us said, I want what I want. So if you want $5, you stick to your $5. If I want $10, I stick to my $10. The men will meet the demand because they have to. Just like in nature, the bees, the lions, the male bird has to meet the female bird's demand, or else he doesn't get the cookie, he doesn't get the nookie, which is what they want. But because of patriarchy, the Madonna-Whore complex, all these things, the woman has been devalued artificially. So you have to hurry because you're getting old. Shabba don't tell we say woman can't done. But we convince ourselves we're getting old. You have to have a man. You have to this. And we know that that's not reality. They are the ones who need us. They are the ones who get sick without us. Other men don't take men seriously unless they're married. That doesn't happen with women. A man needs a wife. Women don't need a husband. But we've drank the Kool-Aid. So in addition to before we even get to negotiation, we have to understand our worth. We have to understand the market is a trick. We have to understand that we hold the power. So if a boy have $4, he better go save.
Save up and come back when you have 5.
Correct.
Right. Okay, and to be clear, there is no environment of scarcity.
No.
There is, however, a mindset of scarcity. 2 very different things. We have been told that there is an environment of scarcity, and therefore we must hurry up and compete with every other woman. There is no environment of scarcity. There is only a mindset of scarcity. And if you have bought into the mindset, then you will act accordingly. What we are saying is stop. Stop. Just stop. Because there really is no scarcity. There's enough. There are enough men and women for everybody. If you want one, there's enough.
Every pot has a lid.
Every pot has a lid, right? As they say, you know. So this is it's important for us to make that distinction. I think that a big part of a woman feeling empowered enough for her to say the price is 5. If you only have 4, go and save your money and come back when you have 5. For her to feel empowered enough to say this, she has to be in a certain place within herself.
Yes.
This is an important part of the preparation for negotiation.
Yes.
It's not just about knowing what to say. The order of manifestation in this life is about first becoming. That is step 1. You're not manifesting anything unless you have first become.
Yes.
Becoming who you need to be and who you need to be in this world, and showing up as the woman that you were created to be in this world. That is step 1. To all the queens who are within the sound of my voice right now, that is step 1 to manifesting anything in this life, including the partner that you desire. The order of manifestation is first to be. And then after that, then you do. And then finally, you have. Many of us are skipping over the be and going straight to do so that we can get to the have much quicker. You can't skip steps in this thing, or you will not manifest what it is that you are desiring. You might manifest something, but watch it, because what you're manifesting may not be necessarily what is best for you, because you skipped an important part of the work, which is to first become. And so the being, I feel like we need to talk about that. You know, if we're going to talk about holding the women accountable for the role that they play in some of the relationships that they have ended up in, let's talk about the be, the becoming.
Yes.
So that you can attract the right thing to yourself, and also so that you can feel powerful enough to say, I will not lower my price. If it's $5, it's $5.
Yes.
And I am not afraid.
You see, one of the things that men understand is a relationship is supposed to benefit them. So, you know, you remember earlier when you were saying we rarely see a man who settles. It's not that men don't settle in the real sense. It's that if they do, it's always strategic. So if a man marries a woman who is not his physical ideal, it's because he doesn't want competition, or he feels he can't afford his dream girl. There's always something strategic. Men tend to select partners based on how she can advance his goals. Women select partners based on a need that we think we have. So what we tend to do is seek the partner first, and then see how we can have a goal or a purpose that includes him. And that shouldn't be. You should have your purpose and your goal first, and then you align with a partner who can help you to advance it. But we don't do that as women. Men are one of the main
word.
One of the main reasons.
I want to shout out and say amen, like how they're doing.
One of the main reasons why men are so set on submission is because they want someone who is going to be their cheerleader, their secretary, someone who's going to literally be a personal assistant to help them along their goals. It's about them, It's about their own personal development. It's about their image. It's about whatever they want to achieve, whatever they see as their purpose. They are seeking women that's going to help them, push them along, right? Women don't do that. In fact, some women are looking for men who they can assist in their purpose. Now, if you think your purpose is to help a man on his purpose, then fine. If you're happy doing that, then fine. But what I'm saying is, women need to understand what their purpose is first before you start seeking a partner. Because even if you're that woman who feels that my role in life is to be a supportive stay-at-home mother and wife to my husband, it doesn't preclude you from seeking a man in the way that I've described, because you're going to need a partner who is level-headed. You're going to need to start looking for a partner who is financially able to sustain your lifestyle at home. You're going to need someone who has your values aligned with his, so that when the child reaches year 6, he's not telling you have to go look at work, right? You still need to develop core values that you are looking for in a man that's going to help you along your journey. Figure out what that is first. Cultivate that. If you think your role is to be a mother and wife, you have to find a man who wants to be a husband. Not all men want to be a husband. Some men want wives, but they don't want husbands. They don't want to be husbands.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to be a wife, you have to find a man who wants to be a husband. If you want to be a doctor, you have to find a man who is not insecure, who's not going to try and tear you down, who's not going to make fun of your career and tell you that you're not a woman and you're not feminine, all kind of nonsense. But we have everything backwards. We leave it up to men to have their purpose, and we are running behind them, because what we want from them in a lot of cases is validation. A man cannot give you validation. A man cannot make you feminine. A man cannot give you, if femininity is your life source. Mm-hmm. That is what men want from us. So you cannot give them, you cannot drain yourself of that. You need to cultivate it, pour into yourself, so that when you pour into others, you still have some. You can't pour from an empty jug.
Right. Yep, absolutely. And that is the becoming.
Yes.
That we are talking about. That's the B part of the work that we're discussing here. And as you rightly said, I have to underscore that part about knowing, finding, understanding, and embracing your purpose. What is your purpose in life as a woman? What are you here? What did you come earth side to do? Because you certainly did not come here just to take up space and then die and move on and leave space for another human. That's not it. Every human, and I firmly believe this, and anybody who has ever been on any of my platforms knows this, I am a firm believer in purpose. And you said something that is so very powerful. In selecting a partner, you cannot go looking for a partner and then afterwards be trying to figure out what your purpose is. This is equivalent to putting the cart before the horse. Yes. You will get yourself into trouble, because you will find that you would have hitched your life to someone who is not in alignment with your purpose, and who will consistently derail you throughout your lifetime, causing you to not walk in the purpose for which you were placed here. And so the ideal thing is to work on yourself first, woman. Know yourself, spend time with yourself, invest in yourself, educate yourself. And when I say educate yourself, I don't mean you have to go and get a master's and a PhD. Education is more than that. Education is you having intimate knowledge of who you are and why you are here and how you are going to walk in that throughout your lifetime. When you have done this work, you will then understand that nothing trumps your purpose in this life. Nothing trumps purpose because it is the very reason for which you were placed here. So how can anything come above that? If it is the reason for which you are here on earth to begin with, nothing can supersede that. You must therefore understand that all else must align with that.
Yes.
That's how it has to go automatically. All else, including the partner that you choose, has to align with that. Which means, therefore, that if the man is not aligning with what you believe you were called to do, what you were placed here to do, that's not your man. Let him go. Just let him go. They have a reggae song that says "Let him go," but we're not going to say the other parts of that song. Only the "Let him go" part we want. Right? Just let him go. If you realize that it's not aligning, because nothing should trump your purpose. Your purpose is your primary reason for walking this earth. So anybody who comes up and tells you what you want to do is foolishness. I remember a time, Keisha, true story time. I remember a time there was a man in my life who told me that psychology is rubbish. Listen, there's a reason why that story started once upon a time. Once upon a time, which means back so, right? Because, yeah, he straight up told me that. I don't believe in this psychology thing.
Who asked him? Who asked him?
I have several seats, sir. Not one seat, several. Have several seats, sir. Because who asks you really? Who asks you that? I don't believe in psychology. I don't believe in any of that. I think that is nonsense. I don't subscribe to any of these things. I'm like, okay.
Because you see, critical to do the dichotomy that we're discussing, the Madonna-Whore complex. And, even if you look at other complexes when it comes to male-female interaction, what they all have in common is that both requires some form of service to the male. They both are about how the woman services the male. And this is why it's important, going back to what we spoke about in terms of women competing for either role or trying to fill both roles. You have to reject it, because your relationship to a partner cannot be defined by how you serve him. It has to be about how you can build with each other and how you complement each other. Mm-hmm. But the problem is, we go about our lives as women trying to fill one role or fill both roles, and we end up losing ourselves in the process.
Yeah.
And one of the things I want women to understand too is that your life as a woman and your self-discovery as a woman is continuous. So many of us feel like once we have children, once we get married, once we're over 35, over 40, then this idea of discovering your purpose must cease.
Yeah.
That's not true. It's ongoing. What your purpose was at 25, you might discover something additional or something new at 45, which spirit calls you to pursue. And you have to create the space in your life where you have the freedom and the autonomy to be able to pursue your calling at any given time. You can't be so caught up in serving a man, serving his fantasy, serving his needs, serving the role He has carved out for you. Whether you find yourself whore or a good gal, doesn't matter. You have to carve out that space for yourself and continuously improve, continuously re examine even the roles you have given yourself. Some of us, started early. Some of us started families at in our 20s, and we realized that this isn't something that we necessarily chose. It's something we just accepted because of the religion we found ourselves in, the society we find ourselves in. So the idea is to embrace femininity in all its aspects. Femininity is free. It's free as the wind. That's why they went through such great lengths to limit it and to punish it. Because the feminine is supposed to be free. So constantly explore yourself. Ask yourself, am I fulfilling my inner joy, my peace? Am I of service to myself first? And so that I can be service to others. So we have to ask ourselves these questions, and it doesn't matter. It's not a matter of age. At 70, when my mother was close to 80, she discovered she liked wearing lipstick. Throughout my life, my mom never wore makeup. In her 70s, she decided she wanted to experiment. You see, that's what we have to give ourselves the space and the freedom to do. And if you're
go ahead, mommy, wear your lipstick.
I
said, go ahead, mommy, wear your lipstick.
Of course, you can't exist in the box that patriarchy has created for you. Leg of that, mash up that.
Yes, yeah. I like the idea of constantly becoming. It reminds me of this book by Michelle Obama called just exactly that. The name of the book is Becoming. And the concept behind the book is the very thing that you were just explaining, that there is no finish line to personal development. There is never going to be a time in your life when you will be able to say, well, I have arrived. No, ma'am. You will never arrive. You will arrive at very specific milestones along the journey, but the journey never ends. I encourage you to celebrate each milestone that you get to along your journey. By all means, don't wait to celebrate at the fictitious finish line, because there is no finish line in personal development. As long as you are alive, you are still becoming, and this is the concept that Michelle Obama was presenting in that book. Because she said that people throw that question at her all the time about becoming who she became, the first lady, the lawyer, the Ivy League graduate, the mother, all the things that she became along the way. And she says that when people ask her that question about, like, how does she feel about the person she has become, she says, the person that I am is actually still becoming. It's just that she has been several things along the way. Along the way, she has been a mother. She's been a daughter. She's been a sister. She's been a wife. She's been a first lady. She's been a lawyer. She's been an advocate. She's been many things along the way, but I haven't finished becoming. I am still becoming. I could become several other things still before I die. Like, don't put the question to me as if, okay, well, she finished doing all the things that she came to do, so pack up your basket and go home now. Like, no, I'm not finished yet. Just because I'm no longer in the White House, there are still so many things that I am still to do. So she ended up writing a whole book and called the book Becoming, because I'm not done. You're never done until you're dead.
Yes.
So to take the idea out of your mind, at some point you have arrived. Your personal development journey should continue for as long as you are breathing. And this is the mindset that I want women to get, and we were talking about finding partners that align with purpose. Something occurred to me. Sometimes some of us hitch ourselves to men who are purposeless. Let me say that differently. Let me see if I can find a more sanitized way to say that. Because nobody is purposeless. None of us were created without purpose. We all have purpose in our lives, but there are some humans who choose not to pursue purpose. There are some humans who are emotionally, psychologically, mentally, and physically lazy. They refuse to work on themselves. They refuse to work, period. Some of them. They're not working, and they're also not working on themselves. They're just not working, period. No personal development, no growth, just stagnating, satisfied with doing nothing, becoming nothing, going nowhere. There are people who are just like that. They have no goals. They don't have any ambitions. Their only ambition is to wake up in the morning and get the day and sleep that night. No need to feel accomplished or fulfilled or purpose-driven or any of that. They're not interested in any of that. And there are men who live like this. You see them today, and where they are is exactly where you will find them when you see them 20 years from now. They're not moving off of that spot. I know men like that. I saw you 20 years ago, and I met you yesterday, and it has been 2 decades, and you're on the same spot. You haven't moved because you're comfortable. I don't really want anything other than this. This is, good.
And sadly, these are the kind of
themselves to be like that.
Yes. And the sad thing is that these are the kind of men who oftentimes want to discourage you from your purpose because they either haven't found theirs or they don't wish to pursue theirs. So, right. Jealousy among partners is a very real thing. And especially women who are naturally dynamic, outgoing, and bright, often find themselves in relationships where sometimes the men impregnate them purposely, keep them what some people call barefoot and pregnant, because they want to prevent that woman from reaching to her stated goals, So women have to be careful of that as well, because one of the things they use is to, try to convince you that they love you so much and you're so precious, and what they have for you is that you're their prized wife, blah, 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 you're the mother of their children, when really what they are doing is just keeping you from your full potential. And I'm not knocking motherhood. I want to be very clear. Those women who choose to dedicate their entire lives to raising children, I think it's an honorable and beautiful thing. But for women who want to raise children and write children's storybooks, raise children and create art, raise children and pursue a music career, sometimes men want to narrow you to just the thing, again, that serves them, because you will either end up outshining them, or maybe you will realize that they are undeserving of you. So this is it's true. It's there's an old song, I grew up listening to, where the man says, he's worried that the person you become may not need a man like me. I don't know if you remember, it's a beautiful song. But he's saying, what if the woman you become no longer needs a man like me? And so we have to be careful of that. Mm-hmm.
Wow. And yeah, but that's a serious thing, because that will result in women who opt not to grow. so that they can remain attached.
But the
It
reverse
is,
is true too, Therese. The reverse is true. And I want to encourage women to think about this too, going back to the point of dating and entering into these relationship contracts. If you are entering into a marriage or relationship with a man who is very driven, very motivated, very key to his purpose, and the exchange that you agree is that you are going to um, perhaps take the back burner when it comes to your career or etc. But you don't practice self-development, because remember you mentioned that self-development is not necessarily going to get a master's or staying at school. You can still develop yourself whilst you are at home or just pursuing other things. So if you are involved with a man, you don't want him to outgrow you to the point where he can't communicate with you. He can't share his business deals with you. He can't take you to certain trips with him. He can no longer relate to you because you haven't developed past the point when you initially met. So you've left all the personal development to him. He's learning new languages. He's traveling. He's playing new sports. He's keeping fit. He's doing detox challenges. You're there still eating burgers and fries, getting fat, getting out of shape. This man is 60 and you look like his mother. That's a real thing. So this is one of the reasons why it's a real thing, and that's one of the reasons why women experience a lack of fulfillment in relationships. A lot of times, and I want to be very clear, women ascribe their lack of fulfillment because of the man. It's not necessarily because of this, because you have not developed yourself and you expect him to fulfill every aspect of your life. No, right? When he's busy improving his fitness and his education and whatever, what are you doing apart from waiting for him to come home? Right?
yeah,
No, nobody likes that. Nobody wants to come home to a mirror of themselves or someone who is constantly like a puppy dog. Nobody wants that in a partner. We might want it in a pet, but nobody wants it in a partner. So self-development is critical for yourself, for your children, and even for your relationship, right?
yeah.
Keep that goal of always being better. Stop trying to fulfill these roles that men have manufactured for us because they're not real.
No. Yeah. All right. It's time for us to wind up. This could keep going and going and going. We we could go. We're hitting the hour and a half mark already. So let's bring it home. Let's bring it home. I think the note I would want us to wrap up on is, and I don't know if there is even a real answer to this question, but how do we play a role as women? How can we play a role as women in bringing sex back to being a wholesome construct, if that makes sense, instead of a construct that is considered filthy, dirty, the thing only bad women do, the thing only prostitutes do, only promiscuous people do, like it, instead of the wholesome and very important act that it actually is. Like it is literally a part of the human hierarchy of needs, just like hydrating your body and eating food. Like how can we as women contribute to bringing it back to that wholesomeness? Or maybe a better question might be, was it ever at that point where it was viewed as wholesome? I don't
Um,
I don't know.
I do believe it was originally wholesome. And I think the way to bring it back is simply to stop performing. Stop performing for men.
Mm.
Stop centering men in sex. Nobody drinks a glass of water to show. I'm not gonna drink water when I'm thirsty to show you how good I can drink the water. I drink the water because it satisfies my thirst and I need it. So satisfying my thirst therefore no longer becomes perverse. It's not perverse, it's not greed to eat, it's not sloth to sleep. It's a need. But when you want to add all of these things now because you want to perform for men, you want to be nasty, you want things pouring on you, none of that is going to ever be wholesome. Because what you're trying to appeal now, you're trying to appeal to very base needs of men that have nothing to do with the sanctity of sexual interaction. See, I often talk on my platform even about, you know, we talk about kegels and tightness of vaginas and all of that. I wish that women would stop seeing kegels and the health, which is what it really is. A tight vagina or a strong vagina is a healthy vagina, not as a tool for a man. Your vagina, the tightness, the wetness, or whatever it is for your own enjoyment, is so that you can enjoy it better. That's the real reason for doing things like Kegels, so that sex is more pleasurable for you. But what we've done, which makes sex so perverse, or it leads to sex being perverse. No, we have these things now where we're doing it because we want to impress men. We want to act to appear as though our vaginas haven't been used, or we have youthful vaginas. We have want to have a vagina of a 16-year-old. Why would a grown man want a vagina of a 16-year-old? Why would a grown man be turned off from a vagina that has given birth if he's not a pervert? But women, rather than rejecting these notions, we buy into them. So we go and get vagina plasticity or whatever they call it. We want to have the tightest, youngest vagina. We want to have breasts that stiff up to here. All of these things which have nothing to do with our own personal enjoyment of the beauty and connection of sex, right? If we were free and saw sex as something that we have a divine right to enjoy as well, then some of these perversions would fall away, because we would no longer be 35 and 40 trying to dress up in schoolgirl uniform to impress a man. That's perverse. Why are you encouraging these kinds of fantasies in your man? Why are you calling your man daddy? You see? So when we take out the performance, we take out centering males, centering phallus, center your clitoris, center your own joy, center your own stimulation. I think 70% of women report that they don't have vaginal orgasms, but we're still having sex. What is the reason for having sex if you're not having an orgasm? Obviously, because we have centered men in the act of sex. And in so doing, we have perverted our own bodies and our own spirits. So once we do away with that, then we can celebrate what the Queen Mother and the goddesses have given to us to celebrate. And then I think we can restore some order and some sanity to our sexual interactions.
Listen, I have nothing to add to that. What can I possibly? What can I possibly say after that, Keisha? What can I? You know what you need to say after that? The only thing you need to say after that is tell the people where they can find you so that they can learn more of these things. Tell the people where your platforms are located so that they can like and follow and subscribe to your platforms before we end this podcast.
Okay, well, if you want to contact me, it's happywombclub@gmail.com. Happy Womb Club is all one word at gmail.com. And all my social media platforms, whether it's Facebook, TikTok, or Instagram, is the same handle, Happy Womb Club. So feel free to follow, send me a message. Sometimes you'll find me here on Therese's show, chatting it up. But yeah, definitely check out my platforms and send me a message, give me a like. I love to connect and grow a community of strong, like minded women.
Awesome. Awesome. And of course, if you're here listening, you should also like and follow and subscribe to the Always a Queen, the Metamorphosis platform. You can find Always a Queen, the Metamorphosis on Facebook, on Instagram, on TikTok, on YouTube, and on Twitter. So I welcome all of your likes and your subscribes as well. And of course, as always, Keisha, it was an immense pleasure. This conversation was so good. This conversation was fantastic. It was really a pleasure to have you here, as always. Whenever you are here, I don't know if I have ever said this to you. When you're here, I learn things from you.
Likewise, sis. Likewise.
Yes, I always come away feeling so enriched after our conversations. And I know that the listeners feel the same way. So thank you so much for taking time out of your Sunday to sit
Thank you
with
for
us
having me. It's a
today.
pleasure.
All right. And of course, as always, I want to say thank you to the persons who have been watching. People have not been saying a lot in the chat section today, but that is never a bad thing. I have found that when the chat section is very quiet, is because people are listening intensely.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
because whatever nuggets are being dropped are so heavy that people are just like it's like they're zoned in. And so I do not look at the quietness in the chat section as, like, oh my goodness, this is not a good thing. I feel like that is always a very good thing, because I can see them. I can see the numbers online watching, but the chat section is very quiet. And so that for me is fantastic. That means people are locked in. They're like, it's like they're so zoned in. They can't even go in the chat section to type anything because they don't want to miss any of the words, So I want to thank our listeners who have been watching with us. Those of you who have been in the chat section, hi, Andrew. Thank you so much for being here. And I also want to say thank you to anybody who is going to watch this recording later, because I know that this video is going to get watched and rewatched and shared many times over. So if you are not watching us live and you're watching this video at some point in the future, we thank you as well for supporting this platform. We appreciate you. And as usual, I leave you all with love and light. And please remember to be a beautiful. Bye, everybody.
Bye.